Attunement slots for magic items in Dungeons and Dragons are so lame. What makes a magic item require an attunement slot? There are a ton of weak magic items out there that do need to be attuned to, and then there's strong magic items that don't. So it doesn't have to do with strength, because sometimes I'm surprised whenever these magic items have attunement. And you can only attune to 3 magic items at a time, meaning a commoner walking the streets can attune to 3, and a 20th level wizard bending reality around him can only attune to 3. So I said let's make attunements more than just a game balancing mechanic in some way that, oh, you can't because you'd be too strong, and something that's truly interesting like they should be. So if anything about attunements has felt off in your games, don't worry, because I have a ton of different homebrew ideas that I'm going to throw at you guys to find the right balance for you and your table. And then of course I'm going to ruffle some feathers and tell you what I do at my table. Time out. Speaking of all this customization and stuff, have you heard of Alkander's Almanac? This is my book that I'm currently writing, and it is an expansion to the core pillars of Dungeons and Dragons. It comes with hundreds of homebrew options for all different parts of your game. We're talking about attunements right now, but I have rules for combat, exploration, social encounters, all the main 3 pillars, and actual roleplay rules that are largely missing from the core rule book, and other things that you might not have thought of that you have felt off at your table that you can tweak. And I give multiple options of these different types of things that you can customize to find what's best for you. Once it's ready and finished, you can pick it up digitally as a PDF, of course, but the only way to get this thing available in hardcover form is until December 31st, and then it's only going to be available digitally on my website after that. But of course, all of that will be linked down in the description. Okay, one of the main reasons attunement slots feels bad to me is it feels very much like a video gamey type mechanic to balance and limit power. It just feels bad. Like I said before about the level 20 wizard compared to the commoner, just 3 across the board has never really made sense to me. Now, of course, you can explain lore mechanics of how magic works in users, and you can only have so much, and you can have cool lore that explains why. And I recommend for you to do that with whatever rules that you set in mechanically. Have lore that connects it to the world. Yes, of course. I'm not talking about that. I could come up with lore of why you can only have 3 as well, and then that would feel okay. But I'm talking about from a game design standpoint, I don't really like that hard limit of 3. Because if you're worried about the balance of your game and your players being too strong, so we can only have 3 because they'll get too strong, you give out the magic items. You as the dungeon master, give out the magic items, and you're in complete control of this. But like my whole speech about Alkander's Almanac, it's not about what I think is best. It's about giving you guys options for your table. So here are a bunch of options. Some of these I don't use, some of these I do use for all of your attunement needs. So the first homebrew here is a very popular one, and I've seen it before floating around out there, so you might have heard it before. So instead of 3 magic items for every player, you're able to attune to a number of magic items equal to your proficiency bonus. So when you first start the game, your proficiency bonus is 2, which is great, because now you can attune to less than 3. That's awesome. I love that. That speaks to me. And then higher up, you're eventually able to attune to 6 magic items. That alone is just a great fix right there, and super simple. And I think all your players would probably love it too. There's a little window of time where you can only have 2, but you don't usually get that many magic items of that kind of power early on. But again, attunement items don't equal power, so it's weird that I just said that off the cuff. We'll get to that. And then here's a second homebrew option. What if you can attune to a number of magic items equal to half of your level? Whoa, I might have lost you just there. Don't worry, you gotta listen to the part 2 of this little homebrew here I'm about to get into in just a second. But that might be a lot. Now we're thinking about that's too many. It's good. I have now found the high end of what you feel like is too much. And that's what this whole process is about, is finding the perfect number for you. Because the third homebrew here is, what if you could only attune to a number of magic items equal to your intelligence modifier? The more intelligent you get, the more your mind opens up to the magics of things, and you can control and tap into these other magic items. And now if you're freaking out about the martial classes or barbarians or rogues out there, what about my magic items? Hold on. Like I said, I'm getting to it. Don't worry. These are just different variables that kind of bounce around here as different options for what could be these fixes that feel best for you. Because now I'm throwing a combo at you right here with number 4 option is, what if you could have your proficiency bonus plus your intelligence modifier, number of magic items you can attune to? Maybe you really like the scaling components of someone over time, and as they get stronger, they're able to get more items, but you don't want to have too much with a half your level thing. That was crazy. And then maybe you also like your intelligence modifier, maybe a constitution modifier, because it represents your body's ability to withstand magic. That's what I'm trying to tap into here, the different mix and match options for what feels right. When I say an option, does that seem interesting to you, or does that seem crazy to you? And before I get carried away, what about artificers? Part of their entire class is being able to attune to more than 3 magic items with this step on their toes. A quick homebrew tip here is, if any of the rules that you come up with step on the toes of a class or a subclass, if they're not in your party, who cares? Yay, that's fun and awesome. Cool game mechanics. But if they are a part of your table and you feel like their toes would be stepped on, you can give them something else that taps into that same flavor. Maybe your artificers get 1 additional use of a certain type of magic item. Maybe they can use it as a bonus action instead of an action. Give them other cool things about some of the magic items. Let them tinker with it. Let them tinker with a type of magic. This one's a little bit out there, but I let my artificer at my homebrew game we're running right now, she'll take a magic item and she'll start messing with it. And I don't know what she's doing with it. And she starts tinkering with it, messing with it, and maybe she adds new magical effects to it that never would have been. So basically, don't freak out and shoot down ideas just because some other class or subclass would get their feelings hurt by it. So keep thinking outside the box and come up with other ideas. But for this whole artificer thing, when you're coming up with whatever formula you have for how you calculate how many magic items you can have, you always add on top of that for your base artificers, just like the rules as written already does. Okay, so now we're going to really think outside the box, and hopefully you've stayed with me this far. What if you change how many attunement slots certain powerful magic items take up? So maybe tiny little magic items that just have little bitty small spell effects aren't too powerful. They don't take up any attunement slots. That checks out because some magic items in the game already don't do that. But then some magic items require an attunement slot for your character because something about their character has to sync up with this magic item. But then some very powerful magic items cost 2 attunement slots, maybe even 3. The homebrew magic system I have for Dungeon Master, there's 3 categories of magic items that actually do sync with their power. It's not rarity based on common, uncommon, rare, all that kind of stuff. That's weird to classify them based on how rare they are. It's power. So I have wondrous, heroic, and legendary. You could easily have wondrous items take none, heroic items take 1, and legendary items take 2, or crazy ones take 3. So now as a Dungeon Master, take a step back. You have 2 different settings: how many possible attunement slots your players have, and what kind of attunements the items actually take. You got to find the right balance for you. Let's say you went for the proficiency plus intelligence modifier. So you have a proficiency of 3, intelligence modifier of 2, so you have a total of 5 slots. Now you got lots of options as a Dungeon Master for different attunements, different items they come across. They could attune to 2 really strong magic items and have 1 more left over. This is overall just a great tool for Dungeon Masters to be able to tweak and change some things. But if all of that seems too intimidating for you and that's just a bit too much, then you can just do proficiency bonus and call it a day. Or you can do what I do. For my personal favorite method here, I don't use any of those rules that I just said. Those were just for you guys. Play around with them. And there are some times, and again, talking to groups about what kind of homebrews you want to use, where I might use proficiency bonus. Sure. So at my table, you can only have as many magic items as you want. There is no limit to how many attunement slots you have. Let's just call this the DC method for attunement here so we're on the same page. And yes, I know this might sound crazy, but wait, hear me out and you might see where I'm coming from with some of these things. Or freak out on me down in the comments, who knows. So first, I am the one who gives out these magic items. So I can make sure to start off with really small, super weak magic items. And then over time, those magic items might become super situational or get entirely replaced by better versions. Then that's cool because the players can now sell that magic item off. Okay, cool. I see this as the natural evolution of the game, and I'm not worried about attunement slots because I give them the magic items. If I don't want them to have too many, I wouldn't give them to them. Second thing here to keep in mind with this is I homebrew, of course, all of my magic items that I give to my players. So I not only choose when to give them to them, I make them all essentially from scratch. I have a very easy system that I use to craft these homebrew magic items very quickly, and it's something I love. It's one of my favorite parts of the game is making magic items. If it's not for you, then yes, you're gonna have to get magic items, but even then, you're in charge of them, and if you feel like this is too strong, you can homebrew, tweak it down, or just chop off a section of it. And if you wanna see this system for how I create magic items like this to be able to give out to my players, if this video gets 2,000 likes, I'll make that video for you. So I make them all. I don't really use random roll tables and then things can get out of my control. Sometimes I might to spark some creativity, see what I get, and then roll with it from there. I will say I do use homebrew magic items from my DC playbooks, but I'm heavily involved with that creation process anyway, and as we're going through them, I'll snag some of them that I feel like fit into my campaign. And you can do the same yourself. Check out Patreon, links down below. That was a random plug. The third thing here for my table is I do use some kind of slots, but I call them equipment slots. And you have equipment slots for ring, gloves, gauntlets, whatever, armor, headpiece, all those types of things, cape, cloak. You get the idea. And yes, that is how 3.5 apparently worked, but I never played in that system. This just feels the best for me. I have an entire little character sheet for them that has a character with all the little spots on it. I'll have a link down below for the free little PDF version of it so you can grab it for yourself and use it if you want. And let me say this, no, you cannot wear multiple types of the same item on the spot. So you can't have like wear multiple gloves. I'm gonna put a glove on, I'm gonna put a gauntlet over the glove. If it makes sense and it's creative, sure. But I also like to add in sometimes certain rings rings are super huge and you couldn't put a metal gauntlet on over the ring. Ooh, interesting. I also usually introduce some sort of magic shop that allows magic item properties to be taken and shifted from magic item to magic item. And it's another huge gold sink for them because it's super expensive, but I have an entire enchanting system for that. Anyway, on to the fourth thing that I use is magic instability. We started to get into it a little bit when you start overloading yourself with magic items. This is fun. And if you know me at all on this channel, you know I love me some wild magic. I have an entire PDF of a D300 wild magic table. It's available on my website. I'll probably put that in the description too. Man, that's a big description. But this gives the DM flexibility. Instead of just being like, no, 3, you can only have 3. That's it. The fourth one, you're trying to tune to it, it doesn't work. Which that also, for the record, just feels bad. Like you're like, nope, like you just can't, right? I go ahead. Even if I use the rules as written, you can only have 3. That would be a soft limit. And I would have this system, which just sounds way more fun. You can attune to a fourth one, sure. If you choose proficiency bonus plus intelligence, whatever your set is for magic items, you can attune to as many as you want, like my system. There's a certain spot where if they pass that limit, if they go beyond it, the magic starts to get weird. Their body might start to have negative side effects. This is where that homebrew deep end I love to dive into opens up, because if you have some sort of light cantrip type thing and you've attuned to it and it does other light type of things, maybe whenever you use it sometime, it blinds yourself and you have to make a constitution save because the magic's just too much. You're overloading your body. And you can really just run with this. I've never had players push the limits of this too much. They've in general understood and they kind of know. I have a system where you have no limit to how many magic items you can have, and my players don't push it because they know that this system's in place. I've hinted at it a few times, and this is a little pulse check as a dungeon master. If you feel like one player is freaking stocking up on some magic items and they're like starting to break the game or whatever, I have a thing in place because I can just think of weird things to screw with them, and there are too many magic items. Maybe they lose control of the magic item at a really bad time. Maybe it doesn't go off at all at a really bad time and it becomes dormant because too much of the magic's going everywhere. I've even had magic items swap effects with other magic items. So taking a big step back here, if all you wanted to do with this video is have some sort of, I want my players to attune to more magic items, and you do the proficiency bonus thing, cool. You everything that you've been doing and just take that one little nugget away and hopefully your game's better off from it. That's literally my goal here. Or maybe you use the same rules as written 3 and you want to lock that in as a hard limiter, but it's a soft limiter now and you want to have this little weird magic system. Sure, attune to that fourth magic item. See what happens. I have an entire video series coming out about magic items and this topic of attunement, because at my table I also handle attunements a little differently as far as how you attune to a magic item, but I'll save all that stuff for that video, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss all these different videos coming. I really don't ask to subscribe usually, but I have a whole bunch of things coming so you can stay alerted for, because really subscribing does nothing. Subscribing and turning on the bell, that's the good stuff right there, because next week is how the attunement magic process works. And then I'm going to get into how many magic items do you give people. So basically these 3 videos are the DM tips about all of magic items and attuning to them and how many and all that kind of stuff. So I hope it helps out. I hope you stay creative and think outside the box. Peace.